Hey guys, welcome to today's video. This is Martin from martinmixing.com, where we do mixing, mastering and magic. As part of the series Good Recordings versus Bad Recordings, today I'm showing you electric guitars and some examples what a good and a bad guitar sounds like. Let's do it. So before we jump into Logic, let me give you a few details about recording guitar. As a guitarist myself, this topic is very dear to me, and I have spent many hours and days researching how to get the best possible guitar sound. Of course, like probably most of you, I have also gone through the frustration of hearing an amazing guitar sound in one of my favorite records, and then trying to get the same sound, buying the same gear, buying the same guitar amps and guitars, just to mic it up, record it, and then not having anything similar. Why is this? Well, just like I told you with drums, electric guitar recordings also have many ingredients. So let me walk you through the finished guitar sound that you hear on an Imagine Dragons record or a Green Day record or Metallica or whatever else. So first you have a guitarist who plays in a certain way. Playing guitars with certain electronics, certain types of wood, certain strings, using certain cables that go into a certain amplifier, using yet another cable to attach to a certain type of guitar cabinet with loudspeakers in it. This cabinet is then in a room with certain acoustics, and the cabinet is then mic'd up with 1, 2 or 3 or more microphones, all of them in a certain position, which we'll never be able to replicate. So this is already 13 ingredients. Then the signal of these 3 microphones goes through a certain type of cable into a certain type of wall box in the studio, running through yet another 15, 20 or 50 meters of cable into a certain type of preamp, where the engineer will then EQ all 1, 2 or 3 microphones in a certain way. That then goes through electronics in the console, which then goes into yet more cables connecting to the analog to digital converter, also known as your interface. That then goes into Pro Tools or Logic or whatever DAW you're using. And then the signal comes out of this DAW, yet through another converter, yet into another console where it's then processed and mixed. And then finally this mix is then sent through the mastering engineer. I can't even explain how many more things can happen during the mixing process. You probably know by now: EQ, compression, phase, reverb, whatever else it is. So I can't even count how many ingredients this is anymore. It's, I don't know, 20, 30 ingredients, 20, 30 factors that change the sound of a guitar. And we are listening to a record and we're trying to recreate that guitar sound. Let's wake up. This is not going to happen. I think the best you can do is use whatever kit you have and do the best you can do with it. Now, the same philosophy as with drums applies, in my opinion. If you don't have at least a medium good guitar with a medium good amplifier and a medium good microphone, then it's better if you take your guitar straight into your interface and use a digital amp emulation. A well-emulated digital guitar amp, I think, is still better than a badly recorded real guitar amp. So now that I've broken everyone's spirit, because we'll never ever get those favorite guitar sounds that we have in our favorite records, let's jump into Logic, where I show you some good and bad examples of guitar recordings. So I have loaded a few guitar tracks into Logic out of mixes that I have done. I have color-coded them. In red we have the ones that are quite bad, I believe. In orange we have some that are okay, not too good, but can be rescued. This darker green one is just another copy of this, I'll tell you later. And then in this green color, we have the ones that I think are really good and only need a little bit of processing to make them sit really well in the mix. So let's have a listen at number 1. So my problem with this guitar is that it doesn't have any substance. It just almost doesn't even exist. It has a really harsh resonance around 3-4K and a lot of sub-bass that doesn't really contribute to the sound. But what's really lacking is this mid-range, this bass from 100 and this 1 kHz. So this kind of mid-range that really defines a guitar sound, in my opinion. Because once I remove the unpleasant part of this guitar tone, there is nothing left. It sounds very roomy, it doesn't sound direct, it sounds very distant, and this cannot be fixed simply with EQ. So in this mix, I just did what I could do, but to be honest, it's not the best guitar sound that I ever had. Let's move on to the next one. I don't think this needs a lot of explaining. This guitar is overly reverberated, which I don't mind if it fits the song, but in this scenario it's really distant. And what's even worse is that it has an extremely harsh upper mid-range and very little body, very little substance. And it's not something I can even recover with EQ. Let's have a listen. It's almost like the substance of this guitar has not even been recorded. It has not been captured. So if I take out the harshness and boost what I think should be an important part of the sound, we get something really weird. So this doesn't really work. Now I did manage to make it sit in the mix later on, but it's again not the best type of guitar sound. Let's go on. Now this could be a good guitar sound if it wasn't distorting. That's the only problem. Every peak, every hard hit is distorting, and also it sounds a bit too hollow. It sounds like the quack position, the number 4 position on a Strat, which can be good if recorded in a certain way, but usually it creates a really hollow sound that is really difficult to make sit in a mix. Let's check this one. I don't think I have to say much. A lot of reverb, no tone, no treble, no nothing. I mean, I have to boost 10 dB of treble just to get something out of it, but something that hasn't been recorded cannot be boosted. You see, this is almost like a high cut from 2K that is starting here. Let me take this off. Yeah, actually it looks like there's a high cut almost from 1K, and there's no upper presence, there's nothing. There's a lot of bass that is completely unnecessary. This guitar sounds very distant, very undefined. I cannot do a lot with this, to be honest. And the reverb makes it even more difficult because every problem that exists in this guitar sustains for seconds. So, very tough, very hard to fix. Let's move on. Now this is orange because the main issue here is that it has a very dominant harshness around 3-4K again. Actually higher this time, I was wrong, sorry guys. So I can reduce that, and now we are getting some nice crunch, some nice body. So let's reduce these subs that we don't need and apply a nice boost. So this is quite good. Depending on the mix, this can be shaped. It's not too bad. I'm not a huge fan of the reverb. I really encourage everyone not to record reverbs and delays, please. Or record a wet and a dry signal, separate them somehow, but give your engineer and yourself a dry guitar to work with. It will make life much easier. Let's move on to the next one. So on my large speakers I can hear that there's a lot of subs, but again we have this really dominant harshness on the top. So here I'm using a few tricks that I've picked up in the past, such as using a wide boost and a narrow cut at a similar frequency. But as you can see, this is relatively fixable. So there is some content in this guitar, there is body. We do have the main part of the guitar, which is the 200 to 1K area, which really defines the guitar sound. And everything else is quite okay. So this was, we can rescue this. And with a good bass guitar that delivers a nice 800 Hz grit and the bottom, this can work really nicely. Now we have examples of the same guitar recorded in two different ways. This is very interesting. So this guitar again has a similar issue. It has a lot of low end, unnecessary low end, and it has this really spiky upper mid-range. So this can be fixed, but compared to the other one, which is the same guitar just recorded differently, this is much, much, much better. This almost doesn't need any EQ. It has a little bit of a spike up here, but every guitar recording, every guitar recording will have a spike between 3 kHz and 5 kHz. It's because that's the resonance of your guitar speaker. Depending on the size of the speaker, of the type of the speaker, you'll always have a resonance between 3 and 5 kHz. On Marshalls, it's usually 3.1 kHz. Mesa Boogie, it's a bit higher up. You can play with this yourself. It's really funny, but every guitar amp has a resonance in this higher mid-range. It's just a matter of how you capture it, how you use microphones to maybe not have as much of it and use the right guitar with the right amplifier to get a really nice and balanced tone. I'll have examples later that are just pure recordings that do not have this resonance, even though the guitar amp definitely did have it. So this is a really good guitar recording, I find. Let me turn off the EQ on this and this so you can hear the difference. So this one, the green one, is just much more present. It has a lot more mid-range, which is really essential, whereas this one is really hollow. It's just a bit too broad, it's a bit too big. It doesn't really fit in with bass guitars, cymbals, and everything else. The higher mid-range occupies the area where the cymbals would be, and the lows are almost in bass guitar territory. So it's much better to have a rather compact guitar tone that blends in with the other instruments. As Chris Lord-Alge said it, to get a really good guitar sound, you need a really good bass sound as well to carry the foundation. So now let's have a listen at some good recordings. So this is an example where I tolerate the reverb because there is substance to the sound. We just have this usual Fender Stratocaster into Fender amp kind of spike. But the low end is really tidy, the mid-range is pleasant, it's warm, it's thick, it's rich. This is a guitar that really works, even though it has some reverb. Now this is a really good guitar sound in my opinion, because here I don't have to fix anything. I only have to focus on bringing out the good stuff, on emphasizing the sound, without having to worry about having to fix something. Let's have a look. That's it, this is all this guitar needs. Of course, in the context of the mix, it might be a little bit different. I deleted one take because it was actually already mixed and it's not fair, so I just want to show you raw recordings today. So this is a really heavy, really gritty 8-string. But again, we have no problems here. Of course, you have a lot of bass. It's an 8-string guitar, but it has substance, it has thickness, it doesn't have any harsh resonances. So here again, I can focus on making it sound big and make it fit the mix instead of trying to fix it. Yeah, all it took was 3 little EQ moves. Also, you know, don't be shy with EQ. Like if you need 10 dB of boost on a guitar, then you need 10 dB of boost on a guitar. It's completely okay. There's no good and bad moves. The only thing that is bad if it doesn't sound good. Let's move on to the next one. Again, really good recording, no harshness, no muddy bottom, no nothing. It has a little bit of a boxiness going on, but I think once we have boosted the treble and maybe some lows, it will be gone. Let's have a look. So much better. It's a really, really cool guitar sound. And this guitar in the mix sounded huge together with the bass and the drums. It's a really, really big sounding one. Let's have a look at the next one. Again, no resonance, no harshness, clear sound, there is body, there is content. If you just look at the EQ curves of the good guitars that we have seen so far, you can see it's usually some slope, a round slope like this, starting at around 80 to 100 Hertz and slowly trailing off in the treble. So in this guitar, again, I just need to boost a bit of treble. Yep, this works. Put the bass under it, heavy, good stuff. And the last example for today. So again, we have the same kind of curve, 100 Hertz, slowly trailing down. Again, we just need a bit of treble. Although this one is not super duper perfect, we can, if you want, notch out this harshness. Also, there's some speaker rattle going on, but nothing too crazy. It's not really audible in the mix, but yeah, if you can avoid it, avoid it. But otherwise, this is a good recording. So as you can see, there's quite a bit going into a good guitar recording. There's a lot of ingredients for a good sound, but at the same time, we are not aiming for anything too crazy, I believe. You heard some of the recordings I showed you that I think are good recordings. They are not crazy special. Everything will need a bit of work, so don't be discouraged if your recording doesn't sound immediately like your favorite Led Zeppelin song or Green Day or Metallica, because it takes a lot of ingredients. It will take a bit of work. Just focus on getting a guitar sound in the recording stage that is not harsh, that is not muddy, that doesn't have reverb, that is relatively even, smooth, and most importantly has this important mid-range that is the whole body of the guitar sound. So I hope you found this helpful. I'm Martin from martinmixing.com, where we do mixing, mastering and magic. I'll be seeing you in the next video. Until then, happy mixing, take it easy, bye bye.